Winning Blueprint presents
In the Lab Room.
Exclusive.
With limited interruptions, In the Lab Room presents the 5-part series, The League. Part 3. You better respect my kicker. Welcome. You are in the Lab Room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is The League. Part 3. Man, look, you better respect my kicker. And we've always underappreciated the kicker position, especially field goal kickers. Punters, I'm not as high on punters. Look, you need a good one. It's always great to have a guy that can coffin kick it or down it inside the 5 and make a team go 95 yards, 93 yards, 97 yards to get a touchdown. That's great. But for me, guys that can take or put points on the scoreboard are imperative to have in this league. Look, if you don't have a good field goal kicker, it's going to be tough for you to take it to that next level in the National Football League. And as much as we want to kind of put the field goal kicker in a separate category, they're not football players. You hear people say that all the time. They're just a field goal kicker. Hey, you call it what you want. You say what you want about the field goal kicker. By show of hands, who has had a consistent field goal kicker, the same one, on their team, kicking for them for the last decade? No changes. Show of hands. All right. Let's see. 1, keep them high. Keep them high. 2, 3. I see 3. I see 3 hands. Okay. The Cleveland Browns with Phil Dawson, Phil the Boot in Cleveland, one of the most consistent field goal kickers in the league. Jason Hanson, who has been doing it for who knows how long. He finally retired in Detroit after 22 years of service to the Detroit Lions. The man was kicking since 1991. Isn't that crazy? And then the Oakland Raiders with Sebastian Janikowski, Seabass, out there kicking field goals for the Oakland Raiders. And so those are the 3 teams that I can think of, and I may be missing a few, that have had consistent kickers for over the last decade kicking for their football teams without any change. I can't think of many other teams out there, and I may have missed a team or two, but I don't think I have. I think those are the 3 kickers that have been staples in their franchises for the last decade. Everyone else has been going through this kicking carousel just like everyone else. A new kicker comes on and the old kicker goes off, and you just go round and round and round and round, and you never know what you're going to get. And it seems like the kicker market in the National Football League is this league of retreads. You don't want that guy? Hey, I'll take him. You don't want that guy? Hey, I'll grab him. And 2012 for me kind of really highlighted that, man, you got to have a really good kicker. If you've got a good kicker, you can do some things in the National Football League. And I hate when people try to devalue the kicker position as if they don't matter. Hey, he's a field goal kicker. Just do your job, shut up, stay in the corner. Look, field goal kickers matter, okay? As a Redskins fan, I can tell you that it is the most frustrating thing to have yourself in a position to win a football game. And look, we're not the only team in the league that goes through this. There are countless teams who have similar sob stories about how they have positioned themselves to win football games only to have their garbage kicker go up and find a way to miss the field goal, screw it up, and you lose the football game. I've had countless games where we've had teams on the ropes. I've had a field goal kicker miss a 22-yard field goal to put us in the lead, to not put us in the lead, to cement a victory. And remember the Super Bowl winning New Orleans Saints team that was undefeated? They were like 13-0. They came to FedEx Field. I wanted that one bad. I wanted it so bad I could taste it. And my boys showed up. We were a horrendous team that year, but they showed up and they played inspired football at FedEx Field. And we're up big, and the Saints come roaring back. And we drive the football the length of the field. We get stopped at around the 2 or 3 yard line. And we got to settle for like a 21, 22-yard field goal. Game is essentially over. All we got to do is knock home what is essentially an extra point to put the game out of reach. We're up by 7. This field goal will make it a 10-point game with just about a minute to go, and we win. Simple as that. Saints won't have enough time to come back and beat us. All we had to do was make a 21-yard field goal. And guess what? Our kicker at the time, Sean Sweezum, goes up and absolutely shanks a 21-yard field goal. 22 yards. Saints drive the ball down the field, score a touchdown, send it to overtime, subsequently take the lead, win the game in overtime, we lose. Everyone drive home safely. And it's games like that that have you wanting to pull out whatever kind of hair you have. And for us as Redskins fans, Kai Forbath. Kai is our guy in Washington. He was a godsend to us last season. Part of the reason we were able to win 7 games in a row. Part of the reason we were able to win the NFC East Championship. Because this guy came in and he was money. 7 for 7 in what I like to call the money range in the National Football League. 40 to 49. This guy was 7 to 7. Over 50 yards, 1-1. So when we needed him the most, he was clutch. He only missed 1 field goal all season long. He was 18 to 19. When we found him, it was the perfect time because we couldn't afford to miss kicks. We couldn't afford to not put points on the scoreboard. Not a good enough team to take opportunities off the board to score points. And so Kai Forbath was the best thing that happened to the Redskins after, of course, Robert Griffin III and Alfred Morris in that run game. He was the best thing that happened to us because without Kai Forbath, there is no 2012 NFC East champion Washington Redskins football team. And that's the power of having a really good field goal kicker. Looking at 2012 and how the league ushered in a lot of young, very vibrant-legged kickers, very big, strong-legged kickers, guys that really transformed the culture on some of these football teams. Let's start with the Ravens and the 2012 Super Bowl champion Baltimore Ravens. We know how 2011 ended for the Ravens with a field goal kicker who couldn't get it done. Now look, I blamed Lee Evans before I blame anyone else. Okay, Lee Evans catches the football. Maybe we're not even having this discussion, but doesn't matter. He didn't catch the football. They still had a chance to send the game into overtime. And Billy Cundiff, hard for me to get that name out because he's a gagger, and I gag every time I'm about to say his name. And those are the kind of kickers you don't want on your football team. Guys like Billy Cundiff. Excuse me. He started out the season as the Redskins kicker. What a horrendous acquisition that was. I mean, when the pressure's on, that guy folds up like a lawn chair, and a cheap one at that. Anytime the game was on the line and the team was driving down to get into field goal range, if they just put a pan shot on Billy Cundiff, you would see the pain and anguish on this man's face as he gears up to kick what is supposed to be the game-winning field goal. This guy wants no part of kicking a game-winning pressure-filled kick. If you look at his face, he looks like he's ready to throw up his breakfast. Every time he's in a position of having to kick a game-winning field goal, he looks as if all the weight of the world is on his shoulders. Like someone has his wife and children at gunpoint, and if he doesn't make this kick, they're gone. And you don't want guys like that on your football team kicking the football in pressure-packed situations. You want guys who aren't afraid of the big stage, who want that pressure on them. They want to go in and drill that kick. And the Ravens were able to win in 2012 because of their new kicker, Justin Tucker. And they got him out of Texas, and he came in and lit it up for the Baltimore Ravens. Ray Lewis had the utmost confidence. You ever watch him mic'd up? He's on the sidelines of that Broncos game, and he's telling everybody, hey, we won. This game's over. We got the best kicker in the league. And he really believed that. And that kick against the Broncos in double overtime to win the AFC divisional round playoff game, that's as clutch as it gets. Just about. I mean, the only thing that could trump that is Adam Vinatieri winning Super Bowls with his clutch kicks for the New England Patriots. I mean, other than that, it didn't get much more clutch than what Justin Tucker did. And to come in and help your football team as a rookie the way he did, that's what a kicker can do for you. Let's talk about some of the good young kickers in this league. Blair Walsh. Where would the Minnesota Vikings have been in 2012 without Blair Walsh? I mean, this guy was absolutely amazing. Okay? From 50 to 59 yards. Listen to this, because this is mind-boggling. From 50 to 59 yards, which is, to me, that's extra. 40 to 49 yards is where you make your money at in the National Football League. When you start kicking 50 and 53 and 54, 55, 57-yard field goals, you start making those, you've got a really good kicker on your hands, and you got to hold on to him. Cherish that. Okay? Cherish that kicker you have. You should cherish that kicker you have. If you got one that can kick it from 55, he's a keeper. And Blair Walsh came into the league, and from week one, the man was pummeling 50-yard field goals, 50-plus yard field goals. In week one, against Jacksonville, they take the lead at the end of the game. It looks like the game's over. It looks like Jacksonville marched into Minnesota week one and stole a victory. Blaine Gabbert completes a long pass to Cecil Shorts III, and it looks like the Jaguars have just come in and stolen the game. And they complete a couple of passes. They get to right around midfield, and they send Blair Walsh out to the field to attempt like a 57, 58-yard field goal. And he drills it. They go to overtime, and they win the game to the Minnesota Vikings. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The man was 10 for 10. I did not stutter. 10 for 10 from 50 and beyond in 2012. Unbelievable. Where would the Vikings have been without Blair Walsh? I mean, that's the kind of consistency, that's the kind of field goal kicking that can take you to the next level. Okay, let's talk about Leggett Ron. You got to be good if you get a nickname at the kicker position. And Leggett Ron, he helped change the culture in St. Louis. They were a losing football team. Jeff Fisher did a wonderful job of coming in and changing the culture, but also a guy like Leggett Ron gives you the confidence to put him on the field. Blair Walsh and Leggett Ron, for me, were the two guys that once you got past midfield, everything was fair game. You were in field goal range. Once you got to the 45-yard line, you were basically in field goal range. And as a head coach, the playbook is so open to you once that is an option for you. You feel so good and so confident that, hey, once I get to the 40, I'm in field goal range. Once I get to the 45, I'm right there knocking on the door of field goal range. Not many teams in the league can say that. Hey, we're past midfield. We're almost in field goal range. 5 or 6 more yards, we're in solid field goal range for our kicker. And he can make it. And so, Leggett Ron, he was 7 of 13 from 50 and beyond. And you say, hey, that's not that great of an average. That's 54%. Wow, yeah, that's not a great average. He attempted 13 from 50 plus, and the Rams got outrageous with it. I mean, they were sending this guy out for 61 and 62-yard field goals like it was nothing because he showed them that, hey, I've got a leg and I can kick this thing and I can make some long field goals. And so they started trying ridiculous field goals. 59 was nothing for him. They were trying 59s and 58s like they were 38-yard field goals. And so, yeah, he missed his fair share of kicks, but this guy was phenomenal for the Rams. He helped them beat the San Francisco 49ers. He helped them tie the San Francisco 49ers. He helped them immensely in this season. There were games where the Rams simply couldn't score points, and he was their offense. He would go 5 of 5. He would go 6 of 6. He would go 4 of 4 in games and help the Rams secure a victory. He would be the Rams' only offense some weeks. And so without Greg Zuerlein, a.k.a. Leggett Ron, a.k.a. Young Jay-Z, who knows what the Rams' season and fortunes would have been in 2012. We got more young kickers who are really taking this league by storm. You look at Connor Barthe out in Tampa Bay. I love this guy. I love his leg. We played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Redskins played the Buccaneers early on in the season, and this guy was phenomenal against the Redskins. And he had a 57-yarder. He had a 50-yarder. He had a 47-yarder. Connor Barthe was money for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was 6 of 9 from 50 yards and plus. So this guy was getting it done from long range for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you get a kicker that can kick a 57-yarder and put it through the uprights, you know the kind of confidence that instills in the coach. Hey, I get to the 40-yard line, I can send my field goal kicker out there, and he'll make a kick. Because if you miss a field goal, you know the kind of field position you're giving up. A lot of coaches are apprehensive about sending their kickers out on the field for long kicks like that, because if you miss, the ramifications of missing a kick like that are brutal. And so you got to really instill that kind of confidence in your coach that, hey, I can send this guy out there for that kind of field goal, and he's going to make it. And guys like Barthe, guys like Blair Walsh, Greg Zuerlein are making these types of kicks and instilling that kind of confidence in their coaches. Justin Tucker was huge. And it's great to make these field goals, but you got to be able to make them in the clutch when your team needs you the most. And I tell you what, a guy like Matt Bryant out in Atlanta, he was so clutch for the Atlanta Falcons in 2012. I mean, he missed some field goals, but he didn't miss a lot of them. But when the Falcons needed this guy in late game situations, I don't know if there was a kicker that was better in clutch situations than Matt Bryant. He drills a field goal to beat the Buccaneers in a ball game. Panthers fans know all too well of the stench of Matt Bryant and what he was able to do to them and the nasty taste he left in their mouth after they had the Atlanta Falcons on the ropes early in the season. Cam Newton fumbles on third down in a situation that if they pick up the first down, the game's over. Their coach elects to punt the football, and their punter does a great job of pinning them inside the 5-yard line. Matt Ryan throws a ridiculous 65-yard pass to Roddy White to get them from the shadow of their own end zone, basically to midfield. They get a couple more yards. They send Matt Bryant out there as time expires to kick a field goal, and they win the game. And Matt Bryant won them the game against Seattle in the divisional round of the postseason with a clutch kick down the stretch. And so Matt Bryant was so clutch and so pivotal and instrumental in what the Falcons were able to accomplish in 2012. And so you need your kicker to be big. Everyone wants to talk about the defense, the offense. Don't forget about the kicking game. And everyone wants to really kind of brush them aside and say, hey, that's their job, make the kicks. But that's one of those positions that when they're making it, it's all good. No one wants to give them props. But when they're missing, everyone wants to crucify these guys and hang them. And so I'm here to tell you, give the kicker some love. And there's a lot of guys getting it done. Phil the Boot. Phil Dawson out in Cleveland, phenomenal. He's been consistent as they come. And he's finally getting a chance to play some winning football. He's now in San Francisco. And they had a mess at the kicker position because 2 years ago when the 49ers really started to ascend as one of these teams that could compete for a Super Bowl championship, they got Harbaugh. But the quietest move that they made was they went out and got David Akers. And he set an NFL record with most field goals made in a season because for much of that season, he was the offense for the San Francisco 49ers. They couldn't get the ball in the end zone in 2011, and David Akers would come on, and it was games where he'd make 5 or 6 field goals, and that would be the bulk of the 49ers offense, and they would win games that way. Well, in 2012, he was the direct opposite. He was horrendous. They could not count on him to make field goals. He was very sketchy, and so you want to win a Super Bowl, you can't have a question mark at the kicker position. It's just as important as the quarterback position. And yes, I did just say that because, hey, your quarterback can be the best in the league. And he can get the football with 1 minute and 12 seconds left, no timeouts. You're at the 27-yard line, and he has to take you guys down to get the game-winning field goal. You're down by 2. And he does his job. He takes you down the field. You get it to the 17-yard line. You send your kicker out for a 34-yard field goal. And if your kicker is one of those question mark guys, and he goes out there and he pushes it wide right, what good is your quarterback? He did his job, but it's not a win. He doesn't get the credit for bringing you back in the football game and getting the win because your kicker didn't get it done. So your kicker is just as important as your quarterback is. Because if your kicker isn't putting points on the scoreboard, there's nothing worse than an empty drive. There's nothing worse than your team scratching and clawing to put together an 11-play, 72-yard drive that stalls out at the 11-yard line. You send your kicker on the field for a 28-yard field goal, and he doinks the right upright. Nothing worse than that. That's so deflating for your offense, and it gives the defense a lift. We stayed on the field for 11 plays. We battled, and they got nothing. That hurts. It's a momentum changer. And so you got to get points when they're there to be had, and you got to have guys who are clutch. And Phil Dawson was clutch for the Cleveland Browns. He made a lot of big kicks for them. They didn't win a lot of games, but he did his job. And so now Phil Dawson is going to get an opportunity to win because he's playing for a really good football team now in the San Francisco 49ers. Look at Jason Hanson, who has just retired for the Detroit Lions. This man probably could kick another 5 years if he wanted to. Over 20 years of service in the National Football League. And for me, he's a model of consistency. I don't think I've seen one better than Jason Hanson for me. I think he takes the cake in terms of kicking the football for a consistent period of time and doing it at such a high level. And I've seen some good ones. I've seen the Anderson boys, Morton Anderson and Gary Anderson. I've seen Al Del Greco. I've seen a lot of really good field goal kickers in my lifetime to this point. But I don't think they've been better for longer than Jason Hanson has in Detroit. He's been a model of consistency. He's been the rock of that franchise. They've won some games. They've been a really good football team early in his career. He's seen the bad times in Detroit when they couldn't even make it to the postseason. He's been through it all. And he's been the rock for that team. He's been there through all the head coaches, all the quarterbacks. He was there for Barry Sanders. He's seen it all in Detroit. And he was the one constant in Detroit. And the reason he was is because he was so good at what he did. And they didn't have to worry about, was Jason Hanson going to do his job? He was going to do it well. They knew what they were getting out of him. And so if you're a Detroit Lions fan, you hope, you pray that the next kicker is half as good as Jason Hanson was for you for over 2 decades for the Detroit Lions. And he was one of the best kickers I've ever seen kick the football in the National Football League. And so you need good kickers in this league if you want to take that next step. There are some really good kickers. We've seen Josh Scobie in Jacksonville. How many times have we seen him kick 54-yard field goals as time expires to beat the Indianapolis Colts? When they had Peyton Manning, when they were going tit for tat in Jacksonville with the Indianapolis Colts, when the Colts were playing at a very high level. He'd come in and he'd drill a 55-yarder to beat the Indianapolis Colts as time expires. He's made some really good kicks. You need guys that can kick it 54 and 55 and 57 yards. And that's where this league is heading. You need kickers with the strong leg. And that's why I caution teams on these retreads. There's reasons why these kickers are no longer on an NFL roster. You have to be careful with some of these retreads. Now, there are some good ones out there. One in particular that I can't understand why he doesn't stick with teams is Jay Feely. Because everywhere he's kicked, he's been a pretty consistent field goal kicker. And I can't understand why Jay Feely never has a job for long. And he's been with 7 or 8 different franchises, it seems, in his career to this point. But he seems to be a really consistent field goal kicker. But you go out and get a guy like Sean Sweezum in the case of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He makes kicks. He's a solid kicker. But when you need that clutch kick from 52 yards, Sean Sweezum is not a guy you can trust. You saw him miss a kick against the Tennessee Titans last year that lost him that football game. It was too far. It was out of his range. You need guys with stronger legs. You need guys that are consistent, that can get it done in the most clutch of situations, and guys that can kick it from 50 plus. And some of these retreads are retreads for a reason, and you need to leave them alone. Go to the college ranks. Find you a guy that was a great kicker in college that can come in and help you really take that position to the next level and advance your kicking position and really enhance the production you're getting out of your kicker. Because if you want to take the next step in the National Football League, you got to have the kicker. You got to have a kicker that can put it through the uprights, whether the conditions are windy, whether it's a game-winning kick from 49 or 52, or it's a simple 37-yard field goal in the third quarter. You need your kicker to be able to put the ball through the uprights no matter what the situation is. And if you don't have a kicker that can do that consistently, you'll find yourself losing football games that you should win. And there's nothing more frustrating than losing a game that you could have easily have won if your field goal kicker was an adequate kicker in this league. And so I say this, and this is my last time saying it. We need to stop devaluing the field goal kicker position because it means a lot to every single team in the National Football League. Because I've seen my fair share of dud kickers. I know you have. All of you out there. There's only a few teams that can say, hey, I've had a really good kicker for as long as I can remember. Not many of us can say that, though. So I caution you. If you don't have a good field goal kicker, there's some teams out there struggling right now at the field goal kicking position. There's teams like the Panthers. It seems like they had about 8 field goal kickers in 2012. They're looking for that right guy. You need to get a kicker that can win you football games. It's clutch. It's paramount that you have a guy that can come in and drill it in the most pressure-filled, pressure-packed situations. And so, this is all I have for you. In essence, I can't speak for you. And I don't know what your kicking situation looks like on your football team. With the game on the line. 3 seconds left from 47 yards. You will respect my kicker.
You better respect my kicker.
The league.
In the L.A.B.
Exclusive.